Hello, good morning, students. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good to see
Good
you.
morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Ma'am.
Are you with your
Good
book?
morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. And your
Yes,
workbook
ma'am.
also?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's a limited time we have for this, and so I'm trying to enter everyone who's coming. And okay, I think we will not wait because it's already 11 o'clock, and we can't go on waiting if they're coming late. So they have to learn to be here on time. And this is only 30 minutes time we have for the Zoom meeting. Then again, I have to call you and I don't want to do that. So I'll make use of the 30 minutes. Now I'm left with only, okay, we have 30 minutes still. So students, let's go on with our book After Blenheim. This was,
ma'am.
this is on page 17 of the book, small booklet, page 17. I want to see all your faces. Please start your video. Okay. Yes, Tanya, so that when you meet me in school, I can recognize you. Good. Rohan is there. Then, okay, Akshita. Chance, where's your video? I will remember all these students. Only 13 of them are here right now. Okay, we go on with After Blenheim, written by Robert Southey. So when we look at Robert Southey, he's an English romantic poet. Now we have romantic poets, we have tragic poets, we have tragicomedy poets and dramatists. So he is he comes to us from southern Germany. That in 1704 he was born. So when we look at him, uh, he has written number of poems. He has written number of stories, short stories. He is also recognized as the uh, poet laureate of his time for 13 long years. He was a poet laureate. Now, poet laureate is a title given to a recognized and very famous poet, and this title is not given easily. So Robert Southey was one of the more person famous, popular, and especially well known in his subject. Therefore, he was given this title of poet laureate. And he was a good friend of Coleridge and Wordsworth in English literature. So when we look at him here, this particular poem, After Blenheim. Now you might be wondering why this title is coming here, After Blenheim. When you look at Blenheim is a small village, and this is in southern part of Germany. And therefore, there was a battle which was fought here near Blenheim village. English and the French were the main people who fought this battle. And there was a lot of crying, lot of bodies lying scattered on the fields, and the young woman who delivered babies. Even those were dead, they were killed. And this is the reason why it is known as anti-war poem. Okay, something that tells the war is not good when you look at the word war. Now, recently we were just listening to the news regarding Gaza and Israel, right? You must be watching the news there. And now they have done the ceasefire. So when we look at here, this particular poem is trying to tell us about, there are three characters in the poem. One is Casper, the old man. He's a grandfather, and he has two grandchildren, Peterkin and Wilhelmine. Okay, Wilhelmine is younger. She's a daughter and a granddaughter of old man. And old man is happens to be taking care of these two young children. So when we look at him, nothing is mentioned about the parents of Wilhelmine and Peterkin, and therefore it is understood that only old Casper is looking after them. Now here, the situation when we look at in the first stanza, it says here, I hope you have your books. It was the summer evening. Old Casper's work was done, and he, before his cottage door, was sitting in the sun, and by him sported on the green his little grandchild Wilhelmine. So you can imagine what is the time? Evening. Okay, I have not muted you, so you can speak. So it was the evening time, and who is sitting outside his cottage? Old Casper.
Old Casper.
Okay. Old Casper is sitting. Now you can imagine whole day he must be busy cooking for children and cleaning up and tidying up the clothes and fixing them and all. So he is resting now in the evening time, and it is towards the sunset. So usually in these countries, the sun sets very late because they are in the west, and India happens to be in the east, so therefore the sun sets early. So here, when we look at here, he's been sitting relaxing, and his grandson Peterkin is roaming all over the garden area, and maybe he has some ball-like structure. He's rolling with his, the kicking and bringing the ball, and we need to use the leg, okay, the foot for kicking the ball. So that ball-like structure that he is trying to bring out, he is trying to, he doesn't know what he's rolling, but for the sake of rolling, he's just rolling it. And we see him, he is rolling the ball-like structure and coming very close to his grandfather, that is old Casper. Now, old Casper, when he is looking at that round-like structure, he knows what it is. But Peterkin is small, he doesn't know what the ball-like structure is. So he says, Grandpa, what is this? Now, when you look at it, was a summer evening, we're on the first stanza. And old Casper work was done. That means he's relaxing now. Work is over for the day. And the only thing he can relax is he can see his children playing outside and then enjoying their evening out. And it was still sun, it was still there. And then he sees his granddaughter sitting in the green. Maybe she is wearing green dress. And that is his Wilhelmine, his grandchild. So when you look at the poem, it is, you can understand while reading it. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Language is simple?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
now we go on to the first stanza. Okay, thank you. First stanza we are looking at where all this happening. Old Casper and the Wilhelmine is sitting with him. Now we go on to the second stanza, and it says, yeah, she saw her brother Peterkin. Now who is she?
Wilhelmine.
Wilhelmine, very good.
Wilhelmine.
Okay. She is the girl. Now she is watching her brother very carefully, and then she is trying to see what he's rolling. So when he says she saw her brother, which means Wilhelmine has seen her brother. You can put there, instead of she, you put Wilhelmine. And roll something large and round. It's like, you can call it maybe bigger than football. You have seen the football. That's the size of this ball-like structure that he's rolling, and it's very large, using his one of the feet to kick it and bring in front of. He's not touching it, mind you. Okay, he's just kicking and bringing it to his grandfather. Rolls something large and round, which he besides the rivulet in playing there had found. Okay, rivulet is the river, the stream. Okay, when you look at stream is smaller than river, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Stream is smaller than river, and river is a big flowing river. Now, when we look at here, he was.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Any question? Okay.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So when we look at here, what sound is coming? If any of your home is making some sound, please tell them to stay quiet for a few minutes. And then it says, which he beside rivulet, rivulet is the stream, in playing there had found, he had found near the stream. And he came, now he here is Peterkin. Please write it there in your book. And she is Wilhelmine. Okay, to be very clear, answer you get it. He came to ask what he had found. Okay, now he's rolling and coming to his grandfather. He's trying to find out what is this, because he's never seen such kind of structure earlier in his life. First time he's rolling and he's coming to the grandfather. That was so large, it says, and smooth and round. Okay, now this is the shape of this roll round structure. When we look at in the third stanza, old Casper took it from the boy. Okay, now it was down. The old Casper has taken from the boy. Boy here is Peterkin, who stood expectant by. Now, expectant, you think something is going on in his mind. You know, he has some curious mind. He has an inquisitive mind. He wants to know what is this roll like a ball-like structure that I have brought to my grandfather. So that is an expectant look, curious look you have in your eyes. And he's looking at the ball, looking at his grandfather, and then trying to get an answer for his grandfather. Says, who stood expectant by? And then the old man shook his head. Okay, shook his head. You know, sometimes we shake hand in nod. We say no. Sometimes we say right. Okay, now which way he was shaking his head? I think it is the nodding. Okay, he knows what it is. Okay, now when he's nodding, he's not happy because his grandchild has found that ball-like structure and bringing same to him. Therefore, he's nodding. He knows it what it is. And then the old man shook his head because he was not happy the way Peterkin has rolled this ball-like structure and brought it to him. And with a natural sigh, we make that sound when we are when we don't want to say anything. So this is how he says, "'Tis some poor fellow's skull." Now, poor fellow's skull. And said he, who fell in the great victory. Now, when we look at here, the poem has, when you look at who fell in the great victory in the third stanza, we go on to, I'm just trying to say, a fourth stanza, in that great victory. We go on to sixth, a famous victory. We go on to the last on page 18, famous victory. You go on page 19, you have a famous victory again. You go on the second last stanza, famous victory, and the last stanza, famous victory. So when we look at here, it has 11 stanzas, and most of the stanzas are trying to tell us it was a famous victory. Now, what was the famous victory? Let me just give you a little brief about this. There was English and French, the two parties which were fighting. And when we look at here, with English, we had Duke of Marlborough and Prince Eugene. Okay, Prince Eugene belongs to Austria, and so therefore this Austria was under British rule. like India. And therefore, the battle was fought somewhere in 1700 between English and French. Now, when we look at here, this Blenheim village, the people living in this village are Bavarians. B for Bombay, Bavarians. You can write it out. Okay. B for Bombay, Bavarians. Now, Bavarians is a tribe living in Blenheim, and these Bavarians also joined English. And therefore, when Caspar says it was a famous victory, it was a great victory, he's trying to be with the side of English. And now there are two dukes, Duke of Marlborough and Prince Eugene. They were the part of the British generals. They fought against the French, and French were weak, and therefore they lost the battle. Now, in this battle, when the battle took place, old Caspar was a young boy, maybe around 8 years or 10 years or 11. I don't know how old it was, but he was a young boy. His father was living in this Blenheim village, and they had to literally run when the English came to attack their village, and they became homeless. Their home, the cottage, was burnt, and so was the ladies who were pregnant, who gave birth to newborn babies. They all were suffering. They were all killed by the British army, and the bodies lay scattered in the field. So all those bodies lying scattered in the field, uh, okay, all those bodies lying scattered in the field, and only blood, nothing else. All that the people could see was blood and bodies scattered. Nobody was there to bury them. They just lay scattered. Maybe the vultures came and make use of that, having the feast with them. But those skulls, they were just lying. And if the rains came and the mud was there was a dust storm, they were buried under the sand or the mud. And therefore, now when we look at here, this particular father or the grandfather, he is trying to tell what had happened. Even he had to run with his father. His father is no more, and therefore he's taking care of the children. So when we look at here, he is trying to tell them what had happened. He says it was a great victory. Now, one thing that I was trying to think about when I was trying to read the poem, this man has no sympathy for the people who died in the war. That is what my idea is. Otherwise, he won't say it was a great victory. If you sympathize with someone, you will not say it was a great victory. You will say, oh, there were many people, thousands of people lost their lives and they were killed by the English army. But here he says it was a great victory. Even though his house was burned, he had to run away, he still says it was a great victory. Don't you think it is something very unusual for you to say that, right? If you are suffering,
Yes,
if you are,
ma'am.
so therefore he says it was a great victory. Poor skull. Now he refers to this some poor skull, fellow skull. That means person who was killed. They used swords, so they would just chop the heads of the people, and the bodies will lie somewhere, and the head will be lying somewhere. So this was the situation during this war, and therefore these skulls were lying scattered in the field. Now we go on to the fourth stanza. It says, I find them in the garden. I here is Caspar. Okay, please write there. Old Caspar. I find them in the garden. It says, I find them in the garden, for there's many here about. Okay, that means when he goes to his field to plow the land, when he's digging the field, he finds such skulls coming out of the field, and he has to throw them one side, and then plow his field. So he says there are many lying there in his field. he has seen them and he knows this. And then in spite of all that, he says it was a great victory. He says there's many here about, and often when I go to plow, I hear his old Casper. When he goes to plow, he again sees those skulls there in his field. He says the plowshare turns them out. You know the plow when you're digging? You have the habit of digging. So when you're throwing the plowshare down, the skull comes up. So he says he's not using those tractors to dig the field. He's using those plowshare, with the oxen, and takes it in the plow field. And therefore he says, I find them there. Now, them here is the skulls. Please put there, them, write it, skull. Okay, I find them out. For many thousands men, now there's no number of the men who died in this battle. So he says, for many thousand men, said he, were slain in that great victory. Now again, he says it was a great victory. That is a repeated sentence or the phrase which the poet is using here, giving more importance to the victory than the war and the causes of the war. Okay. Now here it says, now next stanza. Now tell us what it was all about. Now this is Peterkin and Wilhelmine are questioning the grandfather. Okay, tell us. Us here is Peterkin and Wilhelmine. Please write there, Peterkin and Wilhelmine. Now tell us what it was all about. Okay, now all about is the war. Okay, how it happened, what was the reason, what was the purpose of the war, and you say thousands of people lost their lives. So you say, tell us about the war. Young Peterkin cries. Okay,
Excuse
now
me,
here,
ma'am.
hello.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, I
Yeah.
want to ask that Englishman has killed their own peoples in Blenheim.
What's that?
Englishman has killed their own peoples in Millennium as
Not
the
in their
war
own,
is going
mind you,
on.
not their own people. French are different. Okay, English are different. Okay, English has two generals, British generals, and French has only one weak general, and therefore the army of British is weaker than the army of English. Now you remember we were also ruled by British here for 200 years. Remember India?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, ma'am.
even
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
British is ruling some of the Commonwealth countries still. So when you go over, you find on the net, you will find how many countries British are still ruling. And you will know that they were at one time, they were ruling almost the whole of the world. But now they are no more ruling. So when we look at here, English is one army. Are you clear on that? And French is another army. Now, for English, there is Bavarian tribe of Blenheim, which was supporting the English, and French were not supported. Are you clear on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. So now here it says, and little Wilhelmine looks up. When Peterkin is asking a question, tell us about the war, Wilhelmine doesn't know what he's asking because she's younger than him. And then she's just looking up when Peterkin is asking the question from his grandfather. He says, with wonder waiting eyes, the eagerness in the eyes. Sometimes your eyes will tell us what you want to know. Sometimes you have a question in your eyes, and that tells us, okay, you want this question to be clarified. You may not ask the question, but you will definitely, you have some answers in your mind and you want to ask those questions. So when we look at here, Wilhelmine is just looking with the eager eyes. Okay. Now he says, now tell us about the war. This is the second time repeated. Tell us about the war. Not first time, but second time, tell us about the war. So when we look at here, and what they fought each other for. Okay. They, each other refers to English and French. Please write it there. Each other, English and French. Okay. What they fought. what was the purpose of this war? Okay, now we see here, till now, Caspar has not given them the reason for the war. He has told them thousands of people died. He has told them even he had to run away. Okay, we will see in the next few stanzas. He tells that he had to run away with his father. Okay, so this is where we see. And then he says, it was the English, Caspar cried. On whose side is Caspar when you think of Caspar saying it was the English? Definitely English, right? English is more stronger army than the French. So therefore, he is trying to be with the English group. So then when he's trying to say that, he is trying to say, who put the French to rout? Okay, R-O-U-T. Rout means destroyed completely. You can write the meaning there. Rout means destroyed completely. That means the French were totally destroyed by English army. But what they fought each other for? Is he giving any reason for the war?
No, ma'am.
No, that is not giving right. I could not well make out. He said, I cannot make out why the reason of the war. He says, I here is old Caspar. As I tell you the words, please mention that, especially when it comes to the character. So when I say, I here is old Caspar, you can write there. And then, but everybody said. Now, who's everybody? The people who were living, the people who were saved. Okay, he is referring to them when he says, everybody said. The people who were saved from the war against Britishers, they were saying that this was a great victory. And he says, and that it was a famous victory. Again, he says famous victory. My father lived at Blenheim. Now, I told you, he was a young boy. So he says, my father, Caspar's father. Okay, my here right, old Caspar's father, lived at Blenheim. Blenheim is a small village. Yon little stream hard by. Our house was next to the stream, okay, which was destroyed. Yon is over there near the stream. Yon means there. Okay, yon little stream. Over there was a stream near our house, okay, hard by. They burnt his dwelling to the ground. Okay, now here poet is trying to say the dwelling here is the house of old Caspar. Okay, dwelling is the house. House of old Caspar was burnt and he was forced to fly. Fly means run, literally run from there when the British came there to destroy their cottage. And he says, so with his wife and child, he fled. He had to run with the old Caspar's father, had to run with his wife, his mother, and old Caspar. And now these two had to run. Nor had he where to rest his head. Now, after running away from his own home, which was burned, the father of old Caspar did not know where to stay. They had no place to stay. So I'm going to stop here, rest his head. Okay, put your mark there. I will take up in the next class. Okay, I will give you assignment for language on Friday, maybe a passage, and I'll take up this poem again on Friday. Okay, I'll complete this in the class and I'll give you assignment for the weekend. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, another thing, I'm going to put up this video on your school app. Okay, what we have studied here, in case you have missed out something, some of my teaching notes, you listen to it on the school app and it will be on the YouTube also. Okay, you listen to it and you will find it very easily when you listen to my video. So my time is only hardly, I have 2 minutes. Any questions you have, I will give you 2 minutes now. Is the poem easy or hard?
Easy.
Easy. When old Caspar does not know the reason of the victory, na?
Yes, he is not able to satisfy the children when he is trying to tell them the reason. They say, tell us the reason, the purpose. He says it was a great victory. You know, he's changing the topic. When he says it was a great victory, instead of telling them what had happened and how the war took place, and message is coming, my timing is running out. But anyway, but he's not telling me, telling the children why the war took place. So we will continue from there. You have put your mark there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Continue.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will revise again. And I'll give you some question answers also. And I will give you assignment on Google Meet. Okay. Those simple questions,
Okay,
one
ma'am.
word answer, one sentence answer, you can answer very easily.
Yes, ma'am.
That will be like a quiz. So you can answer it. So I'm going to wind up because my time is almost 1 minute
Okay,
is
ma'am.
left. It says 10 minutes. All the best. And go over the video that I'm going to right
Yeah,
now.
please
I will
send me
record
message.
and I'll send.
Thank
Thank you all.
you.
God
Thank
bless
you, ma'am.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you, ma'am.
Okay, welcome. God bless you.
Hello, Shreya. Shreya.